Welcome to this information series on interior design in Houston, Texas, brought to you by interiordesigners-houston.com. In this episode, we cover the question, what is the process for selecting an interior designer? The first step in selecting an interior designer is to set up the initial consultation. This is often free. It tends to be a somewhat informal conversation to allow you and the designer to get to know one another. Have the designer bring a portfolio of past projects so you can review them to see if you like this designer's work and see if they have done projects that are similar to yours in the past. Make sure to get a ballpark figure for costs. You want to make sure that you can afford the designer's services. Otherwise, you're only wasting your time and theirs. Explain what you're trying to achieve and ask them for their minimum job size. If their minimum job size is beyond your budget, then you want to cancel the initial consultation. Step 2 is preparing for this first meeting. You need to define the scope of your project so that you can communicate it effectively to the designer. Give some thought about what you expect in terms of your working relationship with the designer. How hands-on do you want to be? Are you looking for a turnkey solution, or do you want more involvement in what's going on? If the designer is not willing to work with you on these terms, then you should probably find someone else. Develop your budget for the project and communicate that to the designer so that they know what they're working with. Again, if your budget is lower than their minimum job size, then you should probably cancel the meeting and look for another designer. Finally, collect images that reflect your design likes and dislikes. Find this online, or better, in magazines or catalogs. Make color copies so that the designer can add this to your client file. Step 3 is holding the meeting itself. This meeting is about communication, so it's important to be open and honest in your discussion. You don't necessarily have to lead this discussion. Generally, you want to follow the designer's lead. The designer does this all the time and generally will have a process for you to follow. Remember, personal questions during this meeting are typical. The designer is trying to get to know you, your likes and dislikes, and what makes you tick. One of the objectives is to get your personality to shine through in the design, so it's important for the designer to ask the questions necessary to determine the kind of person you are. Nevertheless, stay focused on the information that is relevant to the design. With so many personal questions being asked, it is easy to slip into telling family stories. Be respectful of the designer's time. At the conclusion of the meeting, you need to be frank about whether you will or won't use their services. If you're undecided, tell them that. The key is you don't want the designer to refuse other work because they thought you were on board when you weren't. That's unfair and dishonest. The final step is to actually make your decision. If you're comfortable moving forward, then you should. Some people will insist on interviewing several designers first before making a decision, but really, this is a matter of personal decision-making style. It doesn't mean that you're doing it wrong if you don't, particularly if you're very busy. However, even if you are very comfortable with the designer, you should always check references. The designer should expect and even encourage this. If doing business with this designer is a bad idea, it will become apparent after a little poking. Once you've checked references and all systems are go, it's time to develop the agreement, which should be in writing in most cases. At that point, you and your designer are ready to go. We hope you found this video informative. For more information about interior design and hiring a professional designer in the city of Houston, Texas, go to www.interiordesigners-houston.com.